Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the virtual Ossining Public Library. We're so happy to have you here. Thanks, Ashley. um, this is the virtual potluck with Ashley Covelli from Big Flavors from Tiny Kitchen. We're going to talk more about other programs that we're doing, but we can just tell you the dates of the upcoming programs are April 11th, May 16th, and June 13th, all Tuesday nights at 6 o'clock on Zoom. So we are doing a new calendar at the Ossining Library, so bear with me and just email either one of us if you don't have the link or the recipe or something. So just let us know. All right. So take it away, Ashley.
Awesome. Thank you, Diana. And yes, if there's ever any questions about the recipes or you didn't get something, feel free. Technology likes to mess with us sometimes. So I think everybody who's here right now knows me, but if you're watching the replay and you don't know me, my name is Ashley. I live in Ossining and I love cooking with you all. So tonight we're going to make some peanut noodles with a roasted pork tenderloin and some honeyed oranges. It sounds like a kind of strange combination, but it's one of my family's favorites. So if you're cooking the pork along with me, preheat the oven to 425. And then while that's preheating, you can, if you're making the pasta, I know Joanna's making tofu to go along with this, which I'm excited to hear how that works out. I think it'll be nice. Fill a large pot with cold water for pasta. According to my husband, who's Italian, so I feel like this is legitimate, he says not to salt the water when you first put it on to boil. So I've stopped doing that because he said that it lowers, he's also much more into like the sciencey side of everything than me. He says it lowers the temperature at which the water boils. So really it's not as hot as it would be if you waited for it to boil and then you add the salt and the pasta. So I've been letting it come to a boil first, like a rolling boil, and then I'll add salt. And you don't have to add this much salt if you don't want to, but what we've found to give the noodles a nice like salty flavor, like so good that you could just eat it a plain noodle and it's pretty tasty. We throw in 2 tablespoons of salt into the water. It doesn't all soak into the pasta, but it really flavors the water. Again, you don't have to go that heavy on it if you don't want, but that's just what we've been doing the last couple of years. And our scoop that we use for coffee beans happens to be 2 tablespoons. So this gets used for coffee and pasta, which are like the 2 key food groups in this house. So that's what we've been using. So I've got the pot on high heat, full of cold water. And once that comes up to a boil, we'll salt it and add the pasta. Let's see, pork tenderloin. If you're not familiar with it, this is different than pork loin. So inside here, there's usually 2 pieces. So there's like 2 skinny pieces. A pork loin is more this size full, but pork tenderloin cooks up really quickly. It's great for weeknights. It takes marinades really well. I have a couple marinades I have one really good balsamic marinade on my website for pork tenderloin. And I have a couple quick like sear it in a skillet and then bake it in the oven type recipes. It does cook really quickly. And it freezes well too. So when you take it apart, see it's 2 separate pieces. They're smaller than the whole big piece. And for this particular recipe, we're shredding it so it doesn't have to, we're not going to bother searing it on the stove first, just kind of roast it all in the oven. But I like to cut each of these in half. It just kind of makes shredding it a little easier later. And if you're watching the replay, I'm sorry you don't get the 2 camera view. We've got overhead and this way if you do happen to be watching live. The limitations of Zoom recording don't want you to get both angles if you don't watch live. So I've just got those sliced, and then I'm just gonna drizzle about a tablespoon of oil on them. Take my oil down. Perpetually like filling the giant bottle into the smaller bottle. I'm gonna use some tongs. I'm just gonna do this right on the baking sheet. Drizzle it with a little oil and season it. You can use just regular salt and pepper. you happen to have grill seasoning, store-bought blend or a homemade blend, it's really delicious on here. I have a recipe for it that I've been using, and it's really nice. It's only a few ingredients, and you can make a jar of it and then just keep it in the pantry. And I've been using it. It's great on meat. And a lot of like grill seasonings are billed as like steak seasoning or, chicken rub, but they're really great on vegetables also. So you don't have to, just because something says on the label that you should use it for steak, you don't have to. You're your own boss in the kitchen, I think. So I'm going to, this is my grill seasoning blend. It's like maybe 6 or so ingredients. I can't remember exactly offhand, but there is salt and pepper in here. So if you have a seasoning that's salt free, you'll want to add a little bit of salt also. I'm going to add 3/4 teaspoon on to all of this. I'm going to just divide it up. If you're doing kosher salt and black pepper, do about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon or so of pepper. So I'm just going to like sprinkle it on and rub them around just to give them a little bit of flavor. And next, and if you do make this type of seasoning, sometimes you need to shake it before you use it, just because sometimes the salt crystals kind of like to stay in one area. So just seasoning that. This would be really good on tofu also. I don't know that I've actually used it for that yet. And if you happen to cook sous vide at home, which is where you have a little, like a water bath, and you vacuum seal the things, pork tenderloin turns out really, really nicely in there. And I don't know if you can tell so much from there, but on this particular pork tenderloin, this piece is like quite a bit bigger than the others. So this one might take a little bit longer to cook. I'm going to use a thermometer to check the temperature when they're baking. So something like this, if you have a little meat thermometer, when you stick it in, it'll take the temperature. So we'll do that. Oh, good. There's Cynthia. All right. Hi, Cynthia. Good to see you. So I just thought, I was like, oh, I think today might actually be okay for you. So good to see you. We're making pork tenderloin and some peanut noodles and honeyed oranges. And if you want some, I'll bring you some tomorrow. Let me know. Perks of living in my vicinity, I guess. Okay, so my oven is not quite preheated yet, so I'm just going to set this aside for now. And we can start on, let's see. The pasta water is not up to a boil yet either, so I'm going to use fettuccine today. So you look at whatever your particular brand of pasta says when you're going for the cooking time. But so this one is 10 to 11 minutes. So I always go with the lesser amount of time because that'll have a little bit more of a bite to it. So you can always taste it. And if you feel like it needs to be cooked a little longer, you can do that. And for the couple of you who just joined, just a note that with boiling water for pasta, I wait till after it comes to a boil to salt it. And then we go kind of wild with it and do 2 tablespoons of kosher salt in the water. You don't have to do that much if you don't want to. It won't all soak up into the pasta, but it does flavor the pasta really nicely. But like a good amount, but just wait till it comes up to a boil before you add that in there. All right, so you have to wait on those other things. We can go ahead and start with the sauce. This is the peanut sauce that's going to go on our noodles. We're going to add some of the pasta water after the pasta is cooking into here to kind of thin it out and make it a little starchy. And I actually, a couple weeks ago, I said to my husband, do you think that there's any use for like saving, like when you drain out pasta water, to like saving it in ice cube trays in the freezer so that you could use it in the future, like to thicken things or whatever? And he was like, no, I don't think that makes any sense. Now I saw somebody else posted it the other day, and they said it's great for like when you're reheating pasta, you take that out of the freezer and you pop a cube in there, and that apparently is, I mean, you can use regular water too, but this already has a little bit of like cooking starchy stuff in there. So I had a feeling, but anyway.
I think you could use that for leftover rice too, because it gets so dry.
I guess so, but I guess whenever I reheat rice, I usually kind of rub the rice in my hands a little bit just to break it up, and then I just put in a splash of cold water and it's always been fine. But yeah, I mean, if you happen to have that sitting around, I don't know why not. The only thing being, if you're maybe feeding it to somebody who's gluten-free and you cooked pasta with the gluten and you put that in the rice, that might be something to keep an eye out on. But yeah, it might work. My oven is preheated, so I'm going to pop the pork in there and we're going to cook it for 10 minutes and then flip them over in another 10 minutes. So it does cook up really quickly. Alexa, set a pork timer for 10 minutes. And pork is one of those ingredients that you actually don't need to like cook all the way through, like white all the way to the middle. The FDA says 145 is the minimum for pork. For this recipe, we're gonna go for like 155, but it's okay. It's not, I feel like that marketing campaign from the 80s or 90s that was like called pork the other white meat made you think of it like chicken, which you definitely don't want undercooked. So it is perfectly okay, and it's nice and juicy, kind of like if you think of it more like steak than pork or than poultry.
Did you season it first, Ashley?
Yeah, I did some of my grill seasoning mix that I keep, but you can just do salt and pepper if you want. I have to tell you, Cynthia, one of my friends, she's a food stylist down in Phoenix, and she came to New York for we both went to a food photography workshop in the city, and she went to the Meat Hook one of the days. Cynthia's son works there. She is obsessed. She like wants to come back to New York just to go to this butcher shop. It's in Brooklyn, right? Yeah. Oh wait, if you're talking, I can't hear you. Just. But yeah, she's obsessed. I have not been there, but I follow them online. It looks wonderful.
They have good meat.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna do a cup of peanut butter into a bowl, and you want to use something, a bowl that you can put. We're gonna put like boiling water in it later. So I guess no like styrofoam bowls if you were for some reason using something like that. The original incarnation of this recipe was one that I'd made from Cooking Light a million years ago, and it used almond butter, and it was very good, and I made it that way for years. But March is National Peanut Month, so I figured it was good to experiment with that. But also, I think it's like smoother. Like almond butter can be a little gritty sometimes. And I also like changed some of the proportions because I don't know. I don't like doing a little bit of peanut sauce with stuff. I feel like if you're gonna go there, let's go there. So it was a little sparse with the sauce prior to that. And if you downloaded the recipe prior to today or yesterday, there was a typo in it. We're going to add 1/3 of low sodium soy sauce, 1/3 of a cup to this, not 2/3. I was doubling the sauce, but I quadrupled that by mistake. It's fixed now. So if you need a new version of the recipe card, that's the one that's currently up there. I'm going to go ahead and add that 2 tablespoons of salt, like I mentioned, to my water, because now it's starting to bubble quite a bit. Not just little bubbles, you want it rolling boil before you drop your pasta in. Just gonna let it come back up. It's like almost there. It chilled out just a bit. The bubbles are like, not quite enough for me. 1 cup of peanut butter, 1/3 of a cup of low sodium soy sauce. If you just have the regular type of soy sauce, you might want to use a little less just in case it's salty. You can always add more, but you can't take it away. So 1/3. Yeah, before it was, the recipe had like 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, something. It was not enough sauce at all. So soy sauce in there. All right, now that we're boiling, like I said, you want to look whatever your pasta. I'm using fettuccine. You could use linguine, spaghetti. I feel like long noodles are good for peanut noodles, but you could use whatever you have. Mine says, this is interesting. It says water. It has little like pictures of the cooking vessel. It says 6 quarts, and then it says salt 212 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know if that's when they're, I wonder if my instant read thermometer would tell me what the temperature of this water is. Curious, I've never noticed that before.
What are you hearing from your sources about?
Let's see, I'm only at 205.
Well,
Maybe that is actually like what they, their boiling recommended temperature. I don't know, I've never seen that. And it says 10 to 11. It looks like inches or feet because it's got like the 1 quote, but minutes. So I'm gonna do 10.
they want to do, try and get
Kind of get it submerged in here. And then I'll start my timer. Did you ever do that thing when you were a kid where you like throw a piece of spaghetti against the wall to see if it sticks, and that was supposed to be how you knew that it was done?
Oh, yeah. Because it was
I
fun more than anything.
Yeah, I definitely remember doing that with my friends. I don't know. I think it was just a fun, that's like about the extent of my sports, my high school sports career. Alexa, set a pasta timer for 10 minutes.
Pasta timer, 10 minutes.
All right. So I'm gonna leave it on high, and if it starts like super aggressively boiling, I'll turn it down just a little bit. But I'm gonna every once in a while I'll go back with the tongs and just kind of stir them around a little bit so they don't stick. Okay, we're gonna add half a cup of unseasoned rice vinegar to here, and I brought out both of my types of rice vinegar just so you could see the difference. This is unseasoned rice vinegar and this one is seasoned, so you can see they have different color. The unseasoned one is just rice vinegar diluted with water. The seasoned one, which is what you want if you're making like sushi rice, and I don't think it would be the end of the world if you use the seasoned one in this. Don't worry about that. But the seasoned one is what you would use for sushi rice. This is rice vinegar with sugar and salt diluted with water. So it says seasoned. It's not anything crazy. It's just sugar and salt. In fact, if I don't have quite the amount I need, I'm going to use a little of that one too. So half a cup.
Ashley, do you think vinegar goes bad?
Yes, actually, hang on. Just if there's like stuff floating in it, it's usually still okay. That's called the mother. But how expired is it?
Like 3 years.
Let's see. Can I see your?
So this was the right. This is
Yeah. Mhm.
I have that one and I have this one too.
Okay, which one is?
This is the seasoned.
Yeah.
This one's newer.
I would maybe use the seasoned one, but hang on a minute before you go to add it in. I just want to make sure when I was doubling things.
Oh yeah, this one, the seasoned one's really old. Okay. Let's go.
Okay, so I'm gonna revise this.
Because I also have white wine vinegar. Can I?
Oh, I would use that. I think that would probably be better.
Okay.
But don't put in how much I told you. Sorry, I'm just looking at my old quarter cup, 2 tablespoons, a quarter cup. We're gonna do a quarter cup of the rice vinegar. I'm sorry about that. This is what happens sometimes when I tinker with recipes. Balsamic vinegar, I think would be a little too aggressive for this. Or are you asking how about balsamic vinegar as in regards to like expiring? Not sure which you mean. Even if it's unopened, I mean, sometimes like I'll use them when they're a little bit past their prime, but if there's a lot of sediment, like this one doesn't have any in here. I had to replace mine not too long ago. If there's a lot of stuff floating down here, I might not use it. Yeah. In general, then the second question about rice vinegar. What about when it's unopened? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like, because vinegar is kind of like bad already, right? It's like, you know, I'm not the FDA, so I don't know what the FDA would have to say about that. But I will look up some info on that in a minute. We're gonna do 1/4 of a cup of the vinegar into the peanut butter and soy sauce. And then I'm gonna grate in 2 tablespoons of ginger, and just gonna give my noodles a little stir over here. If I don't use ginger a ton, fresh ginger, so I keep it in a bag in the freezer. And I just grate it even with the skin on, it's fine. You can use a spoon if you want. You can use a spoon to like peel back the skin, even when it's frozen, because it's very papery and thin. I often don't even bother doing that. I just grate it. It's as long as you clean the outside, you know, before you freeze it. Alexa, stop. I'm gonna flip the pork over. It does not look at all appealing right now because it's just like seasoned white pork, but I'm just flipping it over. We're gonna go in another 10 minutes. Alexa, set a pork timer for 10 minutes. So for this, I'm just gonna eyeball the amount. Do you know how it tastes without peanut butter, food allergy? So can they do other types of nuts or just not peanuts? Because almond butter works great in this. I would assume that sun butter would work. You wouldn't want to just completely omit that. I don't think the flavor would be the same. Like you wouldn't want to just leave out that ingredient altogether. Yeah, I would say my first suggestion would be avoid nuts altogether. Okay. Yeah. Have you or whoever has the allergy in your family tried sun butter? It's a little expensive, but it's a nut-free kind of peanut butter work-alike. It's usually sold right by the peanut butter. That might be. It sounds like it's from sunflower seeds, but let me double check.
Could you use like tahini? Is tahini I mean, that's kind of like peanut butter.
Yeah, so sunflower butter. It is made with sunflower seeds. Yeah, tahini is made with sesame seeds. So tahini is pretty good too. I mean, tahini noodles sound delicious. Yeah, a whole cup of tahini might be a lot too. I would say if you can do sunflower seeds, that would be my first suggestion, just because I feel like tahini is kind of expensive and like a whole cup of it would be a lot, but yeah. Or you could do like half and half, maybe would be a good combination. So you get kind of like the best of both type of thing. Yeah, I don't think it tastes, I think it tastes very similar to like a peanut butter. I've had, back when my son was in preschool, there was a kid in his class with a lot of allergies. So we would do like sun butter and jelly sandwiches. So like on that, it tastes like peanut butter and jelly pretty much. And in fact, it might even taste better than some of the other nut butters that aren't peanut butter. I don't know, I feel like some nut butters are like interesting. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. Because yeah, nobody should have to not have a peanut type sauce in their life if you can not avoid that. Yeah, super grainy. This stuff, actually, I make this. I'm gonna write up a post about it, but I just blend peanuts. If you do make your own peanut butter, make sure you buy roasted, unsalted peanuts. Salted peanut, you can add a little bit of salt, but if you buy salted peanuts, it's like very, very strong. Okay, so we've got peanut butter, soy sauce, rice vinegar, or whatever vinegar you have. Again, I would substitute a lighter vinegar, like white wine vinegar, champagne vinegar, white vinegar. If you had apple cider vinegar might be okay. But balsamic would be a little much for that, I think. We've got our ginger in there, and then 2 tablespoons of chili garlic sauce, which is, they have this at, I buy this from Stop and Shop. It's available in all sorts of Asian markets, but regular grocery stores also. So it's chili garlic sauce, sometimes called sambal olik. I don't know if that's pronouncing it right. But it's not super, super spicy, but it does give it a nice kick. Sometimes I'll put it like on top of ramen. I mean, it's got chili flakes in there. It has some heat, but it's not too spicy for my 11-year-old son, if that gives you any sort of barometer. Now I'm questioning all my measurements. Hang on. Let's do 1 tablespoon of that. Yeah, so 1 tablespoon of this. You can always make it spicier if you want. So you can always add more. So that's what's going in there. And then while our pasta is cooking, before we drain it, I'm gonna go in and grab, with a heat-proof measuring cup, 1/2 cup of the pasta water right out of the pot. And let's see, do I add this? We're gonna add the whole 1/2 cup of pasta water in with this also. So you wanna wait until the pasta's been cooking in there for a while before you measure it out. You can see it's kind of like cloudy. It's not like normal water. If you accidentally drain it and you forgot to add the pasta water, that's fine. So I'm just gonna whisk this together, because once I drain the noodles, I'm gonna toss some of this sauce in with the noodles.
The pasta timer is done.
Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. All right, my pasta timer is done, so I guess that was good, good timing. I'm gonna test one of the noodles. So you never know. I feel like sometimes the minimum time is good. Every once in a while, your stovetop wants to do something weird, and it was a little bit too chewy still, so I'm gonna give it another moment while I whisk this together. And if for some reason, like the heat of the pasta water doesn't dissolve your peanut butter, you could microwave it for a couple seconds if you wanted to. But this makes like a pretty healthy amount of peanut sauce. You could give it a taste if you want and just see if everything's kind of as salty as you like it or tangy. But just keep in mind, once you toss it around with the noodles, it won't be quite as like in your face. So I'm gonna drain my pasta. I got this pot with the draining holes in the lid back when I first moved to Austin in 2005. And it's one of my favorite things ever, like not having to deal with a colander. It's very handy. I'm just draining out as much of the water as I can. And then this doesn't have to be exactly, you don't have to do exactly a third of a cup, but something around there. We're just trying to kind of coat the noodles with enough sauce so that they don't stick to each other. And so it has like a little bit of the flavor on there. Ooh, I just blasted my phone with, with steam. A little steam bath over there. So I'm gonna do a third of a cup, and I'm just gonna toss it in with my tongs and just see if everything is kind of coated nicely. I do this with like marinara too. If I'm making like red sauce, I'll just toss it with the pasta with a little bit of it so that I don't have to have all of the pasta in the sauce. People can kind of pick how much they want, but it coats it a little. I'm gonna put a little bit more in here. And then I'll serve the rest of it kind of on the side. All right, I'm gonna put this lid back on even though it has holes in it. It'll just keep it a little bit warm for now. All right, so sauce is gonna go on the side. The last component of this is honeyed oranges. And I love these so much. if you haven't ever cut an orange like this, it can seem a little weird, but it's a nice way to get it without the membranes in the middle. So I'm gonna cut off the two ends first. Oh, okay, I got a cara orange, little more red in there than I was imagining. And then I have it set down flat, and I'm gonna take my knife and kind of curve around the outside to cut off the outer edge and try not to get too much of the flesh in there. But you know, it's hard to know exactly how far down to go. And you could totally save these for garnish on a beverage if you wanted. Usually how I like to do it is I do this step on all of the oranges first. And if I have some where there's a little extra pith, I'll just kind of go down the side of that. So get all the sides off, and then I'll go in and do the part where we're gonna cut in between the membranes. And I'll show you up close what that looks like. So in here, all these little pieces that separate the segments, we're gonna basically put the knife on one side and on the other side, and then it'll pop out and the membranes will be on the outside. It's a little finicky, but just go slow and it'll be good. And if you just don't have the patience for this, just cut it however you want to cut it. It's not a huge deal, but it is nice to not have to bite into any of the like fibrous stuff, I guess.
Ashley, someone wants to know if the holes in the lid slows down the cooking process.
Alexa, stop. I don't leave it on while it's cooking. So Alexa, stop. So bossy, that Alexa. I don't leave it on while it's cooking. So no. If you were trying, I have other pots that are similar size that have a full-on lid though, because yeah, if you're trying to like something that needs to be covered, you couldn't use this unless you put a kitchen towel in between the lid. That would help, but still a little bit of the steam would probably escape. So, I mean, it's really mostly just for pasta, or if I'm cooking something that doesn't need the lid at all. Let's check this pork, because I'm gonna let it sit and rest for a few minutes before we shred it. Whew. Again, this stuff doesn't look particularly appealing when you're cooking it like this, but we're shredding it, so it's not gonna matter. But I'm gonna take my this meat thermometer. I'll bring it over closer so you can see. I'm gonna put it in, you wanna try to get it in toward the center of one of the pieces. So I'm gonna go on the thickest one first just to see. And I'm gonna push it in till it's about halfway in. That one's only reading 129, but these littler ones, 152, 173, 156. So I'm gonna take the littler ones off and I'm gonna put the bigger one. I'm gonna let that one cook for a few more minutes because it's not quite. Grab this. This one's got peanut sauce all over them, but that's okay. Again, it's the one, what was the FDA? 145 is the minimum they recommend, but to be able to shred it, you don't want it to be too pink in the middle. Alexa, set a timer for 5 minutes. Sometimes though, if I'm planning for leftovers, I'll take when it cooks like that, I'll leave the biggest piece. I won't cook it more than that. I'll leave the biggest piece because then when I reheat it in the microwave at a lower power, it's not gonna overcook. So sometimes I'll do that. Just clearing off my cutting board, make a little bit more room here. Compost bin is full. All right, got 2 more of these. Next month, Diana and I were talking like spring veggies. Just realized the holes can prevent liquid from boiling over. Oh yeah, that's true. Like how if you put like a metal spoon in there, it's supposed to help, or if you put one across the top. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, so next month we were talking about spring veggies, and so I picked a recipe. I feel like a lot of people are intimidated by cooking clams, and they're really easy to work with. So I have a recipe that I came up with a million years ago that is for like some sauteed spring veggies, and it's got some bacon. You don't have to do the bacon if you're not a meat eater. But saute some veggies and then steam some clams to go on top of it. And then if you get like some crusty bread to dunk in, it's a really nice combination. So that's next month. And then May, I've got a taquito recipe that's really good. And that recipe, you can use whatever type of ground meat or vegan ground meat substitute that you like. And I've done some experimenting with that particular recipe, and you can actually assemble them and not cook them until like the next day, and they're still perfectly fine, which really surprised me. I thought they would get soggy, and they didn't. And I have some in my freezer. I'm going to try cooking them from frozen before that class just to report on how it went. So I'm going to do this for the overhead camera just so you can see kind of what I'm doing. I'm going to cut over the bowl, but I'm going to drop the slices back down here until I make the sauce. So any extra juice is going to go in this bowl. So there's these two lines. I'm going to cut on the insides. Be very careful with your hands here. You can use a smaller knife too. On both sides. And then the piece just kind of plops out like that. It's called a supreme, which sounds super fancy and bougie, but it's really not. And then you just kind of pivot and you find the next section. And it goes there. And you just kind of do that all the way around. And then I like to squeeze what's the membranes after all the segments are out to get any extra juice in there. So you can kind of use the this piece in the middle. It really kind of helps guide you when you're cutting, which is nice. If you have any like paper cuts or anything on your hand, you might not want to cut them quite like this. You'll get a lot of citrus in your cuts. That's always,
That would sting.
yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, so we have, and then what was June? I think we picked some kind of like picnicky type favorites. So there's an antipasto pasta salad and a watermelon mocktail that you could make boozy should you choose, but I'll be showing it without. So it's like nice picnicky potluck type of stuff for the warmer weather. I'm just gonna squeeze this over here. Really get a lot of juice in there. That over there. All right. So this is going to be not super interesting. So does anybody have any, like while I'm cutting all these up, does anybody have any other questions or requests for the fall? We'll be back after June. We'll be back in September. I know that's typically like cozier weather type of dishes. Or has anybody had any recipes they've made lately that have been interesting that you want to share or talk about? I'm happy to talk for, you can just talk about random things for another few minutes if you want, but figure while I'm doing something somewhat mundane over here.
What about like low calorie dessert, where you don't get the calories and the sugar, but yet it's
Alexa,
tasty,
stop. Yeah. There's one that's like, it's not even barely a recipe, but just the first thing that comes to my mind is there's this like decadent dip. It's basically silken tofu mixed with a little Nutella. So it has the texture of like chocolate mousse, but it's got a lot of protein, and
nice.
It's great for like dipping fresh fruit or. Let me check this. I think we should be good on this one now. Yeah, this one I'm just gonna leave. I'll shred these ones for today because this one's like, it's getting close, but I don't want to overcook it today because my family won't eat all of these today anyway. But yeah, so something like that. Or
my sister has a recipe. I'm not sure if it's from Cooking Light or if it's from something else, It's some kind of lemon dessert, and it's like, I think it's just egg whites and it has lemon in it.
Ooh,
And you bake it up and it gets almost kind of like not a souffle, but it's really light and refreshing and it's so
interesting.
good.
Like a
Can-
semi, like, or a pavlova. That's what I was thinking
Oh
of.
yeah, it does kind of sound like. Is it like a pavlova?
I'm not sure.
Those are they're like little kind of like a meringue, like a crinkly.
No, it's not like that. It's real soft.
Ah,
Oh,
I'll have to get the recipe from her
Yeah.
and see what it is.
for science.
But it's like really light, and I know it doesn't have a lot of calories in it,
Ah,
but because it's so light, then I just want to eat more of it.
yeah. I was happy to see on something recently, like the serving size was actually like surprisingly was like the whole container, and I was like, whoa, like, when
Hey.
did that happen? Oh well, not speaking of not low calorie desserts, I grew up in the Midwest, and they have some of the Girl Scout cookies there are different than the ones out here. And out here there are lemon ups, which are perfectly good. But years ago I had called lemonades from one of my friends. And so this year I ordered from my friend out in Wisconsin from his daughter, and they had the lemonades, which are amazing. They're more like a shortbread with like a little bit of lemon icing on them. But they had this flavor that I've never seen before. I think it's new this year. It's either called Yay Toast or Toast Yay. And they look like little slices of bread, and they taste like French toast, and they're so good. I can show you the package after I finish this, but if you're interested, but they're very good, like very, very good. Yeah, I like lemon a lot too. The lemon ups are good. There's something about this particular one with the texture that I really like. Okay, so we've got the juice from those oranges in there. Gonna add a tablespoon of honey. Tablespoon. You can always spritz a measuring spoon or cup with oil if you want to measure honey and have it kind of not adhere. Usually helps. Of course, the lid of my honey jar is stuck on there. The little honey dipper that came with this one recently died, but I had a backup different type of honey dipper. So yeah, it slides off pretty easily when you do it like that. You don't get the stuck all over the measuring spoon. And then 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground allspice. It's just a tiny bit, but it really adds a little something extra. So most measuring spoon sets don't come with 1/8, so just fill up your 1/4 teaspoon about halfway. Put that on there. And then I'm gonna whisk that together. Although that whisk is dirty, so I'm gonna use a fork. The other whisk has peanut butter sauce on it. If your honey isn't dissolving too well, again, you can microwave this for like 15 to 20 seconds. Just get it dissolved in there, and then you can go ahead and toss the oranges back in. It seems like, it is a lot of work to cut the oranges up like that, but it's such a nice flavor. And I usually serve it with the spoon, but also, so people can strain out the oranges if they want, but then I like taking a little of this liquid and drizzling it over the pork too. So the only thing that's left now, you can make these ahead of time too if you wanted to. The only thing left to prep now is to cut up some herbs. Yeah.
Serve that salad on the side.
Yeah, so I put it like right next to it. But like for my son, I'll put like a pile of the noodles and the pork with the peanut sauce, and then I'll put the oranges off to the side. For me, I commingle. It's delicious. It's an interesting combination. So like test it out first, see if you like it like actually on top. But I think that some of the orange juice honey mixture on top of the pork noodles is pretty good. And then again, like if you like extra of the chili garlic sauce, you could add that. I'm doing, let's see, about a 1/2 cup each of green onions and mint. Yeah, I think this just like kind of hits all the good notes. It's got like the cool, warm, tangy, sweet. I don't know. It's a fun one. Very large green onions at Acme the other day. So I'm just cutting these up. It doesn't have to be anything perfectly consistent, but just small enough so you can sprinkle them over. And like if you have somebody eating at your table who doesn't like one or the other of these, you can keep them separate. Otherwise, you could just toss them together and mix them up and sprinkle it once instead of twice. Okay. So just rough chop on those. Then we need to shred the pork. Can I shred it on here? Let's see. I'm gonna mix these together because we like them both in here. You could also, if you wanted to put like some chopped peanuts on top, that would probably be pretty nice. I also, if I went to Georgia last fall for the annual peanut harvest, Georgia Peanuts had me come down for it. And it was so cool to see these farms, like all these family farms and how the peanuts are grown and just the production that goes into them. It's wild. So I have a much more of an appreciation for this now. So you could slice the pork if you wanted to. I usually just kind of start pulling at it. Once you get it going, it's usually a little bit easier. I usually like a big fork and some tongs. Again, for like reheating purposes, I would say like I'll probably shred like 2 of the pieces of this pork tenderloin, and then I'll wait to shred the others if we're gonna eat them or for whenever we eat them, so that they don't dry out when I reheat them. And for reheating like a piece, like one of these pieces of pork tenderloin, I would have this in a container with a little splash of water, and I usually reheat it at half power if your microwave has that option, just again to try to help prevent it from drying out, because pork is great, but it can be a little finicky when you reheat it. So I'll shred just this one so that I can make a plate and show you. Okay. And this isn't one of those things, I don't know if you've ever tried in the, oh nice, Diana found the cookies. If you have ever had like a rotisserie chicken or pieces of like cooked chicken, while it's still warm, you can put it in a KitchenAid with a paddle attachment and turn it on, and it shreds it like super fast. It doesn't work for pork tenderloin. It would be great if it did. All right, so I'm going to take some of the noodles so the noodles, remember, have some peanut sauce on them already. So I'm just going to put a little pile there. I usually like to throw a little more peanut sauce on it here. Put some pork up on top. My son is actually really excited that this is what's for dinner tonight. So top with some pork. And then I'll do some of the honeyed oranges. I'm gonna kind of nestle it next to there. And like I said, I like to take a little of this and just kind of put it on top too. And then some of the herbs. Well, I guess green onion's not an herb. It's sold with the herbs, but it's an allium. And that is it. It's a really fun, it's like a bright kind of citrusy combo. And Joanna, I'd love to hear how it goes with the tofu with it too. Yes, those are the Girl Scout cookies. If anybody needs a hookup to somebody in the Midwest to order them, I can send you my friend's daughter's link. Right, does anybody have any questions? And Cynthia, do you want me to bring you some tomorrow? I didn't hear you, but I'm assuming that was.
You're very, very sweet to think of me. I mean, I would love a bite.
Okay, I can bring you more than a bite, but okay.
You're very sweet. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We'll be next month, April 11th, 6 p.m. to do some clams. Thank you so much. And I hope I got to all the
What you call this?
this
this meal-
one. This one is what do I call it? Peanut noodles with roasted pork tenderloin and honeyed oranges.
Great.
Looks fabulous.
Does it really? Yeah, I'm excited about the oranges.
Yeah, I'll have to.
Yeah.
I'll figure out how to package them up appropriately. This is the clam dish. So that's next month. It's a clam with spring veggies.
That was the employees.
Oh, the oranges. I just put them next to it. I just in a little pile next to it. If you don't want it to mix, you could like separate it on the plate. But it just has honey and some allspice. Just gives them a little bit of extra flavor.
Do you have this, Ashley, at a restaurant or something? Is that?
No, the original version was from Cooking Light magazine, and just over the years I've kind of played with the amounts and some of the ingredients, but I really liked that. No, I don't mix them with the noodles, but you could if you wanted to. Yeah, I've just kind of like adapted it to how my family enjoys it. Yeah, it is kind of it looks kind of restaurant-y. Yeah, like a little side salad.
Yeah.
That could go with a lot of things. That looks great.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this the oranges would be great, like maybe over like a yogurt parfait.
Ooh,
Like that would be, could make a batch of them and keep them in the fridge. It's just like a little annoying to cut again, but I think it's
that's
worth
why
it.
you make a huge batch and eat
Yeah.
them, you know, every day.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
awesome.
imagine also just like slicing some really thin fennel with
Oh
that.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That would be really good.
Yeah. A little bit more salady.
Mhm. Yeah,
Thank-
I actually have one that's kind of similar to that. That's a fennel and citrus salad with shallots and capers. Put that in the chat. It's got grapefruit and it uses the fennel fronds too. The clams, it's clams, it's steamed clams over some sauteed spring veggies. It's got a little bacon in it, asparagus, bok choy, or I put in the notes for the recipe that, you know, any spring veggies that you like. It's pretty flexible.
I think the recipe's already up on the LibGuide, so you could go
Yeah.
to austinlibrary.org and digital library LibGuide virtual potluck and find it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's a mouthful, but it's a
it is.
yeah. But I'll show you
Literally,
too,
yeah.
because the clams, just quickly, if you're buying clams, if you're gonna cook along with me, get them, don't get them more than a day before if you can. And most stores will give it to you. It'll be in a mesh bag, and they'll pack it with ice. Don't close a bag around it or they'll suffocate. So you want to make sure you keep it open in the fridge.
So ask your adding.
Yeah, I know. It's a little morbid, but you know, we got to keep them alive till we cook them. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank
Believe
you,
me.
everybody, for coming.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.